So hi there, guys. I'm Dan Van Brunt, and I am a Senior Director of Technology here at ClickHealth. I was going to go through and tell you a whole bunch of things about me, but I'm going to skip through it because I have a lot to get through, so hold on to your seats. Basically, I work for the marketing department here, and these two gentlemen here I have the pleasure of working with every day, and this is just some of the cool stuff that we get to build. But we're here to talk about serverless pipelines. So just a quick agenda. We're going to talk about what is serverless. We're going to talk about the serverless framework and the goal that I'm going to frame, which is building a serverless pipeline. I'm going to take you through what we went through to do it. I can do a live demo, and we probably won't get time to walk through code, but happy to talk about it afterwards. And we're going to have time for questions. So just a show of hands, who's heard of serverless? Cool, so most of us. If you haven't, don't feel bad, because even when I heard about it, I didn't really understand what it was. So this is what it is. I won't make you read it. Martin Fowler is a very smart guy when it comes to DevOps, wrote many books, but this didn't help me out very much. So this helped me out. Does everybody know what that is? I was lucky to buy one of these recently. This is a wireless charger for my phone, right? But what's kind of funny about it when I call it a wireless charger? There's a wire, right? So this is kind of what I like to use as an analogy for serverless. It's not that there aren't any servers, it's just there's no, you don't have to worry about the servers, provisioning the servers or monitoring any of those things. Those are handled for you. So all you have to do is put your phone down and the phone charges. So maybe it's better said as serverless, but that's still confusing. Some people coined the term serviceful, which sounds a whole lot more like what it is. But just sort of high level, where does the word serverless come from, or what do we expect when we use something that's serverless? Well, it promotes microservices architecture, so building things in small pieces that all fit together rather than just having one box that everything sits on. Zero administration, meaning that auto-scaling for a large amount of load gets handled for you. There's no monitoring. OS and security updates get handled for you. It's pay per execute. It's event-driven. And I should mention, pay per execute basically is that when it's just sitting there idle and it's fully provisioned, ready for full production load, but nobody's visiting your site, darn, you pay $0 effectively, right? Because it's paid per execute. Event-driven means that it, again, promotes that microservice type environment because you can have things joined together. And it's interoperable with other managed services. So this is just an example of a very basic serverless application. And the thing I want to call out is just that this is the serverless piece right here. This whole thing would normally probably sit on one server, and then you'd have a separate server for your database here. Whereas now I've got different functions or lambdas that sit in the cloud separately. Okay, so what's missing in this picture? Serverless has been around for a while, or at least the idea of it. It's just got a lot of popularity recently. And one of the things that you need for sort of new-ish type of infrastructure is tool sets to use that infrastructure. And serverless framework was one of the first. There's a bunch of them, some written by AWS. There's one called SAM. There's Troposphere. There's CDK, which was presented here a couple of nights ago, last week. So there's a lot of options. I'm just going to talk to you about our experience, and it's going to be with serverless framework. And it covers all of these platforms. So you can deploy serverless to these platforms. These are the main services that it uses. So has anyone used AWS before? Amazon Web Services? Yeah? Okay, so these are the main ones that, literally it can use any service, but these are the main ones that it touches on: API Gateway, Cloud Formation, and Lambda. So when you're building a serverless pipeline, what are some of the challenges and things that we wanted to have with our pipeline? We wanted a 100% automated pipeline. So I'm not going to read it, but unit test, integration test, yada, yada, all of those things. We wanted to be 0 to hero, dev to prod. So we didn't want to have to push a button to go to prod. We just wanted to commit to a Git repo and have it go to prod. We wanted it to be fully GitOps. So all of the status checks and sort of checkpoints, the gauntlet you need to get through in order to successfully go to production should be pretty rigorous so that you know when it gets there that you're safe. Most importantly, we wanted an infinite number of dynamically deployed environments. So we didn't just want the stage and the production. We wanted any number that we wanted, and they needed to have unique names. We also needed to have a predictable URL structure. So we wanted branch to be, as you can see at the bottom, feat socket, and then the service would be demo site, and then the environment is dev. And we wanted to be able to handle complex infrastructure. So this is an example of one of the things we built, Serverless. It's a media streaming platform similar to, probably closely similar to TED, but it does a lot of the stuff that YouTube does. We wanted to be able to do redirects, rewrites, and proxies, which is something that's really, really easy to do when you have an instance. You just write an htaccess file and you put it in a directory and away you go. But we're in an S3 bucket now and we don't have a web server. So we wanted that, but serverless. Has anyone seen this screen before? Nobody? 2 people? I won't bother talking about it then. It's really cool. Don't do that. Well, the last thing is it had to be really fast. Very, very fast. Faster than this presentation. And one of the things we found out is that I just showed you a screen where I said don't do that. I skipped over it. But basically there's another way that you can do something that's, I would argue, the wrong way, and it deploys really fast. The right way is to use CloudFront, but it takes 30 minutes to deploy every single environment. Imagine trying to push a change and you had to wait 30 minutes every time. Unusable. So let me create an example of what I'm doing. Here's one of my projects I have. And off the master branch, I'm going to create a feat branch. So this is what is kind of simulating what would happen if a developer was like, hey, I wanted to try something out and see how it works. So you can see I already have a feat branch called feat demo. I just created one called feat new. And if I go to our pipeline, which is just our CI/CD pipeline, you can see it already kicked off a build there. That's the gray one. And you can see right here it says in progress. Just to show you I don't have any tricks up my sleeve, I'm showing you some stacks that we have. Stacks are specific projects that you have in AWS, and I just have the feat demo, but the one I just created was called feat new, and so it's not there yet because it's being built. All right, we'll let that run. And let me just quickly talk about what's happening in our proxy stack. So it's a work in progress, but right now we use a Docker CI pipeline. So the thing that's doing the pushing, that was all that teal color interface, it basically wants you to provide it with a Docker container to run a bunch of commands. And our Docker container we just call build harness, and we have a bunch of things installed with Node.js, Yarn, AWS CLI, that type of thing. And then the proxy stack itself, which is basically a CloudFront distro, a DynamoDB table, and land at the edge, which I won't get into, but it basically allows you to run code as people are hitting the front end of your site, which again, when you're doing it serverlessly, you don't have a server, so it really helps to be able to make dynamic calls even though you don't have a server. Then we're using a custom resource, which is basically a way for the next thing, the demo project, to basically say, okay, I know what I am, I'm a project, but you need to tell me what URL I should be, because we wanted that predictable URL, so that when you deploy, it's gonna put all of its assets up and it's gonna get back the URL, and then everybody can visit that site. This is what the pipeline looks like. This is a lot more complex than it used to look like. But the important bits is that these are all of our project buckets. These are unique. When they get deployed to production, they would have their own CDN in front of them that takes 30 minutes to deploy. But when they're in development, when we want really, really fast deploys, they're using the exact same CDN that's already been deployed, and just has a function sitting here that acts as a router. So when you come in, it says, hey, what were you looking for? And let me see what URL you looked for, and I want it to go to feet new, which is the one I just created. It's going to go to the database and say, what S3 bucket should I go to? And then it's going to say, okay, I'll go to that S3 bucket. And it serves it back up to you. And you can make deploys in 3 minutes. Hopefully, because that's what it just did. Or else this whole thing just failed. So let's just go take a quick peek on where that is. How am I doing for time?
10 minutes.
10 minutes? Wow. Who knew? So we're sitting at 3 minutes right now. Let's just take a quick peek at what's going on. So we run some unit tests, and after the unit tests pass, we're going to do a deploy for the feature branch. You can see here's the assets being created in AWS. It's using CloudFormation under the covers. That's what Serverless Framework compiles to, is a template that you give Amazon and say, could you make this happen? Deploy all of these things for me, and then it just does that for you. So that's what the CI pipeline's done right now, is it said, hey, somebody just requested feet-new, can you create me one of these but with feet-new? And so that's what it's basically trying to set out to do right now, and that's at 3 minutes and 43 seconds. Okay, so now it's deployed, and now that it's deployed, we're doing a test with Lighthouse. So how many people use Lighthouse, know of Lighthouse? Front-end developers, woo! All right, so Lighthouse is basically a Chrome, Google creation to test websites. It's amazing. If you don't use it yet, please use it. And it's going to test that Lighthouse, and it's going to say, is this site ready to go? Does it pass the muster? I can put in and say, if it doesn't get at least a 60% rating, then fail the build. So now when Camilo says, hey, I want to push this in, I'll say, no, you gotta bring up your numbers there. And then it sends out a Slack notification. So if I go over to Slack, here's the Slack notification I get. It tells me that the branch is feet-new, which is what I did. I have my Git version. Here's my Lighthouse scores. It's the best scores I've seen yet. It's not much in the app yet, so. Anyway, and then if I click this URL, it'll go to the website. So does everybody have a phone on them? Why don't you go ahead and get out your phone right now, we're going to have a little bit of fun. If this worked. Yes, it worked. Fantastic. We were having some issues. Long story, ask me about it another time. We get volume? No? All right. So if you guys go to that QR code, if you scan the screen, you should get to the QR code. And you just start button mashing those sigils on the bottom. Hopefully, go nuts. You're allowed to vote as many times as you want. Stark is doing very good here. Targaryen. All right. Does anyone watch Game of Thrones? No spoilers. I haven't watched past season 7, and I'm rewatching again. I'm only on season 2. Okay, so pretty cool. We stood up a whole application that's got databases, API gateway, lambdas, web sockets, you name it, and it was 3 minutes. I'm gonna let you guys have fun. For those who are following with the presentation. Okay, so now let's delete the branch. And so here's the branch feet-new, and I'm just gonna delete it here. Notice I'm not touching anything in AWS. I'm a regular developer just doing what I normally do. So I deleted that branch because I'm done. Either it's been merged into master and I'm happy that that's happened, or I'm still working on this and I decided, this is garbage code, I'm deleted, I'm done. But the important thing is I don't want that stack to still be there. So you can see there's feet-new and it says delete in progress. So now it's tearing that stack back down. I could leave that there because I'm not spending any money on it as long as you guys aren't button mashing on it. So I could leave it up and it would be fine. But it's just good cleanliness to sort of tear it down. All right, so how'd we do? We wanted 100% automated pipeline. We do have that. We wanted typical GitHub Webflow. We do have that. We wanted infinite dynamic test environments. We do have that. What I just showed you there was dev, but we also can make a branch that anytime you merge into master, it's going to deploy to our production environment. And anytime you deploy to RC dash, it deploys to like a release candidate or a stage version. Predictable URL is something we have. It does work with complex infrastructure. That test was pretty complex, and we've done it with our more complex things, and they work. The piece that I didn't mention, which I can't, well, actually I can show you right now. How much time do I have? 5 minutes. That works. So I actually have another one here because I predicted something would break, but it actually didn't. So, okay. So what I did, it's just an S3 bucket, and I want to be able to do redirects. And so what I did is I put a file that is basically the HT access into that gets uploaded to the S3 bucket, and I can do mappings, and I can, just like you've seen in HT access, if you've seen it, which is basically what URL are you trying to get to and where do I want you to go. And I just made one for devto. So if I do devto, it redirects me to devto. And I can do, I've even done it with proxying, so you could do /API, and then you could have that proxy to the Twitter API, so now you don't have to worry about loopbacks. When you're trying to do calls to your API, you don't have to worry about coors and that type of stuff. So yeah, super awesome stuff. If you guys want to know more about that, you can check out MIDI reroute. I apologize for the documentation, it's not bad, but basically this is the brains that handles all that dynamic redirecting in a very nice way with serverless. Okay, and so the initial deploys, they take 3 minutes and, 3 minutes, 4 seconds, 3.4 minutes actually is what it is. And consecutive deploys, so once you've already deployed, if you're just pushing changes to it, and then let's say those changes are just for the front end, they take 2.3 minutes, and then to remove it, about 1 minute to do that. And that is it. I encourage you, if you want to know more, I have a Lambda at the Edge course with a Cloud Guru, and if you guys want to learn some of this crazy stuff, Cloud Guru is a really great place to learn all this craziness. They do all the different cloud providers like GCP and AWS and Azure and all that stuff. And there's some super smart people there. So that is my presentation. Thank you.
Deploy times are legendary. Has the introduction of those really quick deploy times stirred any change with other teams to get their deploys down that up?
Hopefully. Yeah, so Click's a big place, and we do a bunch of different things. We have a bunch of different organization that we have for different clients and that type of thing. So you can't really say that there's one thing that we do. We do a bunch of different things, and there's very defined reasons for why. We've just specifically been fortunate on my team, on the marketing team, that we have the ability to try new things all the time. So my boss is very sort of forgiving for that type of thing. Who's the CEO of the company. So we just have the ability to try this stuff, and I'm constantly in contact with various different people at Click trying to sort of show them some of this stuff. So yeah, I mean, there's no reason why we couldn't do it, and I know we are doing it on some other teams as well. So yeah, those deployment times are actually not crazy when it comes to serverless, but certainly if you're re-imaging machines and doing stuff like that, it's going to take more time, but yeah.
No, basically I just wanted to ask you, so how does it really benefit the process when you have a development team that have the ability of having like dynamic environments? Does it really change much in terms of the workflow? Does it save time? And then other question would be, as far as I understand, serverless basically means that your environments depend on the completion ratio you have. And in some teams, from my experience, sometimes it becomes a mess. Do you end up having that problem? You end up having multiple branches, multiple environments, and how do you manage that?
Yeah, did everybody hear the question?
Can you repeat it?
I'll repeat the question. So essentially the question was, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, question one was, does this, or how does this aid in your development time in teams, or does it cause more confusion? And then the two-part question was, how does it react? How does it translate to maybe repos and how you commit your code, as well as I think something in there about serverless having different routes and things, and so then you might have different places to put your code and stuff. So I have the benefit of having a 3-person team, so it's worked well for us. It's regular Git flow at the end of the day, so it's just you're just using Git and you're checking stuff in. So I guess as long as you're being clean with how you do things and thinking about how you're committing code and how you're segmenting your code, then things tend to work out really well. The feature branch thing, I guess, it gets more complex. To be fair, the thing that we just deployed was like one stack, one application that had everything in it, like everything. Like if I had an API that had hundreds of functions, theoretically it would, in this case, be in one stack, which is cheating because you probably wouldn't want to do that. And then it would make deployments easier in that you could just do one deploy. But it starts to break down when you're trying to maintain it, and people just want to just touch just the user code, just the user create sort of function. So I don't have any APIs that big, so I've never had that issue, but certainly we do with the IDX platform we showed, we do break things up into multiple stacks, like the API stack, the auth stack, the front end stack, the transcript, because we have something that transcribes video for us. So they're separate stacks and they get deployed separately and they get versioned separately and that type of thing. So there is ways to maintain this. And then I don't know if anyone was here in the last week where they did an CDK presentation. It's showing you how to build really complex CloudFormation templates, but using code. And then you can actually take a piece of your infrastructure and you could create a node module, and then other teams can use that node module and that node module is versioned and that type of thing. So if you think of a huge infrastructure, every single piece can be a node module that's versioned, and then you have a deploy that's deploying all of the versions that you want. So it's basically the dream, right? Because it's like the way we deploy front-end applications, but it's the entire infrastructure. So it's pretty cool.
Thank you for the presentation. So
It was Patricia that turned off the mic, wasn't it? She did that last time. If you guys were here last time, she turned off the mic on everyone.
is it working? Oh, okay. So this thing has a database, right?
Yes, DynamoDB.
Yeah. Did you I'm just wondering, did you get inspiration for that from stuff like maybe like Heroku, Aerobatic, or App Engine from Google? Because it's kind of similar, but with actual application. Can you compare this stuff?
You mean like on the proxy stack, like for it to find which route it's supposed to go to, or just for how I was doing the socket connection?
Essentially, it's whole CI/CD, because you commit the changes and it will be built and put in a server, and then also this will is giving you URL, and it's essentially automatic at a given stage in URL, based on branch, so you don't need to do any coding there.
I see.
And build.
So you're talking about the whole, we call it the proxy stack is what we're talking about, that gives us all of those benefits that I was talking through. So I've used Heroku before and recently did a lot of looking around at, I got Netflix stuck in my head, but it's not Netlify. Not to put too sharp a point on it, the repo that I was showing you, that MIDI reroute that I was saying handles that, is literally a complete re-engineer of what Netlify does. I literally took their documentation and just rewrote it. So it gives you what Netlify already has for redirects, proxies, and rewrites. But yeah, I mean, everybody wants that, right? You want to have these really fast deploys that are really easy and that it's just sort of weight off of everybody to worry about. And you don't want to pay money when it's just sitting there and all those things. So, I mean, that was the impetus for us to do it for sure, and yeah.
Thank Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Just curious, why not just go with Netlify? Or like, were there, I know you work in the medical industry, maybe there's restrictions for that, or was it just like you could bring costs lower by going straight up on AWS? Like, why not go with Netlify that does a lot of this already?
So it's a really good point. A Cloud Guru, the company that I was showing you earlier, their whole site is serverless, and it's hosted, the front end's on Netlify, and the back end's all AWS. And they have ridiculous amounts of traffic. So I'm just sort of saying, like, Netlify is awesome. And we started trying to use Netlify, because we had already started building this before I'd heard about Netlify. Not the crazy redirect stuff, but a lot of it. And we sort of fell in love with our predictable URLs. And then when we got into testing things in Netlify, they were straight up saying that if you want to do exactly the way that we're doing it, you would have to basically write your own API calls and stuff. And that was because of the fact that we wanted each site to be its own thing. And they can do that with independent domains, I think. But there was definitely some sort of limitations with specifically how we wanted our URL structure to be. Other than that, I think that was the only thing that really prevented us from doing it. Yeah. Thanks, guys.